Welcome into another episode of NFC East Beef. I'm your host, Hefe, and I'm here with a special guest, a Eagles fan who is, lifelong Eagles fan, diehard Eagles fan, and soon to be my brother-in-law, David Dasher. Welcome in, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. Appreciate you for having me on. I was super excited when Michaela told me that you had your own podcast, and to be more specific, it was in the NFC East. So I'm glad to, I'm honored to be on, and I love what you got going on here, bro.
Yeah. I definitely got inspired by watching some other podcasters just like this one arguing, and I was like, you know what, I got a lot to say. I know a lot of people who have a lot to say
Yeah.
about this division, and to my knowledge, we're the best division in football history. I want to put the history in there.
Okay.
Because maybe not the past decade, but hey, we're still here.
I mean, one thing that you could say about the NFC East, bro, is it's always competitive. The first thing that I would say is that I believe we're the only division now that has two teams that are still remaining in the playoffs.
Yep.
Is that a true statement?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. And I mean, I know we're gonna get to it in a second, but our games are always tough, no matter how good or bad I feel like the Commanders are playing. Games against Philly are always tough. Y'all always take it down to the wire. The Cowboys was a little bit different this year, as well as the Giants. I mean, I think it was an outlier year for those two teams, but nonetheless, man, the division is always tough. I think year in and year out amongst those four teams.
I'm glad you said that. You said that we're the most competitive division. Everybody knows that we have not had a repeat winner in the past 30 years almost. It's been 04.
Yeah.
And that was the Eagles. So does that give you some little worry about next year?
I mean, to be honest, bro, like coming into this year, I thought it could go either way between us and Dallas. And just adding y'all to the fold, I think that y'all definitely are a team that the division is going to have to worry about next year. I think if you're asking me, I think we got it locked up in terms of the next couple of years. But I don't think it's a no doubter, if you will. I wouldn't say that I'm worried about y'all in the division. But y'all definitely getting there for sure. Y'all definitely getting there.
You're not worried about that at all. About that. Thought in your mind. You're just like, oh, it's still Washington. Not really there. Okay. All right. I want to put out there. I think people don't know this, but we actually recorded this last night for almost an hour. And I messed up on the audio. That is my fault. So David and I have already gone back and forth about what we think of each other's teams, but we're going to reiterate that for y'all.
Yeah, for sure.
Today. It's funny that we seem to forget that this should be the year that Jaden Daniels has the least amount of time. Should be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people are forgetting that, all right, next year we're going to have more offensive weapons. We're going to have a better defense.
It'll never look like this again.
Yeah. Whereas the Eagles have the best roster, if not in football, definitely the NFC East. They have the best roster. There's no argument.
Yeah.
They're all locked in for at least 4 more years. Contract, most of their talent.
Yeah.
So there won't be that many changes.
Yeah.
Except for the playbook, because you might lose Kellen Moore. There's not going to be a lot of changes. So to me, that's all right. The Eagles are going to have a lot more competition, not just because of us, because every year other teams in the NFC East get a little bit better. Hell, Daniel Jones 2 years ago was beating the Vikings in the playoffs. So you really never know with this division. Let's get into a quick recap of how the Eagles won their game this past week, and if you could just give me a little highlight on what you view, not only what y'all did positively, but also what y'all did negatively and what y'all did.
For sure. Now I think in that game, the defense should have got the game ball for that game. I think the defense won the game for us, and our offense did what they had to do in the moments that they needed to do them to win the game. Jordan Love and the Packers offense never really got into a rhythm. Our defense was super physical. I think he threw 3 interceptions and we had 1 forced fumble, so a lot of turnovers. Moving into next week, some things that I think that I would like to see improvement on, or I think that we could have did better, is just the passing game. That's been something that, because we have a Saquon Barkley who has had 400 touches up to this point this year, that's kind of been the squeaky wheel in our offense, if you will, where we're not passing as much. I think Jalen is maybe averaging 20 pass attempts a game, and so that part of the offense is not getting, to me, as much attention as maybe it needs. And so I think that that's probably the biggest part that we need to improve moving into a game with the Rams, where the Rams are going to be able to put up points. They're going to be able to throw the ball around. And so not putting as much pressure on our defense. Our defense, like I said, went out and took the ball away 4 times. I think we had a touchdown or 10 points in total off of those 4 takeaways. So that's something that I would think we need to improve on. But all around, good game. Like I said, I don't think it was ever really a question in that game. And I'm excited to see what we got against the Rams.
I'm glad you said that because my next question was going to be, all right, what did you get away with against Green Bay? And you're not going to get away with that with the Rams, and you pretty much answered that. What is the biggest threat the Rams give y'all, and how do y'all stop that?
I think it's Matt Stafford. I think that he's a Super Bowl champion. Statistically, he's one of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in a long time. And they're playing really hot football right now. That offense in general. I mean, he has great weapons and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Higbee. The tight end is playing. He wasn't playing the last time that we played them. Kyron Williams, obviously. So being able, and I think that one of the things that not to get off track, but one of the things that Detroit was able to do to Minnesota, and what the Rams were able to do to Minnesota, is cut the head off of the snake. And I think that's what we have to do with the Rams is get pressure on Stafford, make his day super tough. It's going to be cold, some snow, maybe some rain. So just making his day as hard as possible up front is going to be a big key for us winning that game. Defense stands stout. And then again, they're going to put up points. I don't doubt that. So our offense being able to match and, go out there and match that, their offensive intensity is going to be important as well.
Right. And this will probably be the last question I have for the Eagles. Yesterday when we were talking, you said you weren't as worried about Kyron Williams. And I'll bring up this point. Mm-hmm. If, like you said, Matthew Stafford is cooking in the passing games, we know how Puka Nacua can be and Cooper Kupp can be in the playoff when playoff time comes. What also happens, those linebackers ease back a little bit to help out with coverage. So if that passing game is doing damage, it becomes now easier for Kyron Williams to get stopped. So I think those two tie into each other. And 100%. If you don't stop the passing game, Kyron Williams can be a problem.
And get going. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I don't think that he's a back. Kyron is a back where, all right, if the 2 guys on the outside aren't doing what they need to do, we just going to pound it and run straight down your throat. I don't think that they're that type of offense whereas a Saquon Barkley, you maybe can do that, but you're 100% correct. If that passing game gets going, that opens up the whole playbook for them.
All right. I want to welcome in my co-host, Corey. Good to have you in, brother. Can you hear me?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
What's going on, bro?
Now, Corey is our resident Cowboys fan, and we do have some questions about your coaching search, sir. There are some rumors.
Me too.
That Deion Sanders is going to be or is being looked at for a head coach. What is your opinion about that?
Man, you look at, and I am in group chats with a bunch of other Cowboys fans, and we joke all the time, about how we just feel so stuck, right? And I've said it for a long time. Like, I wish we would just hire an actual GM and get away from like our owner and being our like all this stuff where he just controls everything. Like get a guy in there that knows how to like basically build a team. And some of that does start with a coach and GM being on track. But if your coach is also worried about the owner liking them and can fire them at any point, like that's just a weird dynamic, right? So that would be step one. Step two is like I'm also tired of being just like, oh, we're a 12-win team. Oh, congrats. You know, I heard somebody talk about the Steelers, right? Like, and Mike Tomlin. Hey, we did what we were supposed to do. We, overachieved again. Great season. Well, you just get stuck in that same rut every single year. So like my whole thing was like, screw it. Dak's out this year. Let's just tank and go get a great draft pick because that's the only way we build our team, right? Just through the draft. We're not signing free agents, whatever. And then you start looking at the head coach and it's like, well, we have like Micah talking and saying stuff like during his little podcast, and like there just doesn't seem to like they don't seem to respect like Mike McCarthy. So at some point you start like, all right, well now we gotta kind of look at the coaching situation again. Yes, he did great in getting us 12 wins, but it's like, all right, what else are you doing? Are we winning any playoff games? No. And so whenever Dion's name kind of got brought up, I got a little excited because I feel like he's got like this swagger about him that's very relatable to the guys in the locker room. But he's not like this ultra young guy. He's still old enough to like have that like, hey, I'm an old head, like you can respect me that way, and I also have like this aura about me that demands a little bit of respect, right? So my thinking is like if he can get that and help control the locker room. Also, Jerry knows that he has this aura, and you can't just go in and tell Dion what to do because he's gonna be like, no, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, you hired me to do this job. Like, let me just do this job. Whereas like in the past, like a few other coaches might just not say that directly to him. So I feel like Jerry can, one, command that from the locker room, and two, kind of keep Jerry being the owner. Like, let me do my thing. So I think it kind of excites me. Now, the only other part of that is like, who are you going to get as your coordinators, obviously, and so on and so forth. Like, you can rely on Shedeur in college and Travis Hunter in college, but like it's the pros. Like you need dudes out there. You can't just rely on like 2 or 3 guys to like help you be competitive. So we'll see where that goes. And then lastly, it's like, who else are we going to hire, man? Like some of these other coaching searches are, I don't want to say locked up, but I feel like, we're not getting Ben Johnson or, some of the other names. It's like, I don't really want Kellen Moore because, again, he's a young guy. I don't feel like he demands respect from that locker room, and he would just be another little pawn in Jerry's little chess set. And like, that's just not something I'm looking forward to another 3 years of that,
I will say this. We did talk about this last night. It's interesting that you said that Dion would match the players' energy, which I do think that is true. He would match the players' energy. My thing is, if they don't win in that first year, like Colorado, it takes time. Sometimes it takes time. It's not every year you get a new coach, new system, and you just do great. My worry is if they go out and have another season similar to this one, where there are about 7 to 8 wins. I think Dion and Jerry will not mix personality-wise on visions on how to fix it. I don't think that personality will mix when they get into the losing stage. Now, they could get together and work things out, but let's also keep in mind this is so, I feel like it's neither here nor there because Dion said he's not going anywhere without his sons. And I don't think the Cowboys are in position to get either of them. Now, how the draft is adding up, I don't think Shedeur might go all the way down to this, mid-round. But I think the better pick for y'all would be Genty if available to get some more weapons.
I would love that. Or I haven't really looked at the draft prospects much, except outside the top, star names that you hear about all the time. but like a really good run stop, like defensive tackle. Like that to me, we've not been able to put any pressure in in the middle of the line for a while, and we just literally get abused every single time, and it's just so frustrating to watch. Like there's
now,
nothing
David and I
worse.
agree. We love Jerry, don't we?
Huh?
David and
we
I
love
agree.
Jerry.
Exactly.
We love
And
Jerry.
that's the problem. All you guys being other fans love Jerry because you know Jerry's gonna Jerry, and he's gonna fuck it up one way or the other. Either he's gonna say something stupid, right? Or he's just gonna like kind of string along like this whole like, oh yeah, well we're winning 12 games and then we lose in the playoff. Like what are we changing, man? Like we literally had the best running back in the league want to come and play on our freaking team. And we're like, you know what? I believe in like our development. I love Rico Dowd. I don't want to pay this guy. Like you just basically said, I don't want to pay this guy.
And then went and signed Ezekiel Elliott.
Didn't even call DH. Didn't even call the King.
And that's what me and Jeff was talking about last night, bro. It's like it's only so much that Dion, and I don't think that Dion is the guy for the job personally, but it's only so much that he's going to be able to come in and do. Like the problems in Dallas right now are so much larger than the head coach. I feel like that you could put anybody in there. You kind of hit the nail on the head. Like whoever gets put into that head coach position is just a pawn in Jerry's world. Even if it's Deion Sanders. And you got to know that Deion is not going for that. Like Jeff said, Deion said he's only coaching the team where his son is playing at. So he's already creating waves before he's even in the building, of saying, well, I'm only doing this, I'm doing this, and this is what I'm not going to do. I just don't think that that's a good way to go for where y'all at in y'all's. I don't know if you're calling it a rebuild right now or what, but where y'all at right now and y'all's build, I just don't think that's the best. That's the best way to go.
I don't think it needs to be a rebuild. I think they already have a star wide receiver. They have a leader on defense. They have decent cornerbacks when healthy. I don't think it's a rebuild necessarily. I think honestly, they missed out on Vrabel. I think Vrabel would have been a great coach for that team. He demands respect, but also knows how to talk to higher management. And he's been a part of a losing franchise, which goes a long way. So you know how to deal with questions at the podium. You know how to deal with unhappy owners. So I think they missed out on Vrabel.
I don't think that was ever a question if he was going back to the Patriots. I think they always knew that was going to be the guy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And that like goes back to my first point of like, this is why I think we need a GM.
Yeah.
Like we need just a GM, not a owner GM. It's like having a player coach. You can't do it. Like,
yeah.
You need a Howie
like later in your year.
You need
like,
a Howie Roseman.
Be the player. Just be the player. Right.
Yeah.
And the only like pushback, it's like I just feel like if you hired Dion, you know what Dion brings. And his first year with Colorado, like they got so much hate and so much like whatever, like just coverage. He's used to the media. He knows like how to kind of talk like and somehow after literally getting rid of probably 80% of his team, telling him basically get out, get to the transfer portal, whatever, like they were successful this year. Granted, it's the Big 12. I'm a big college football fan myself, but like granted, it's the Big 12. They're not very good anyways. But if you can kind of like rebuild that very quickly with college kids, I think that when you get like mature grown men that you're like, hey man, this is your freaking job. Like do what you're paid to do. Shut the hell up. Like my hope is that you can change the stars' opinions, like Parsons, maybe even Dak and CD. And like, I think I talked to you about it, Jeff, before the season. You know, like, oh, like what do y'all want to do? What should y'all do? And I'm like, I don't know how good we're going to be this year because we just haven't. I don't feel like we've gotten better in the offseason, which we didn't. And I'm like, you know, crazy hot take, you might be able to just trade CD and get a bunch back for him. And I think you kind of were like pushing back a little bit on that. And it's not that I don't love CD. It's that
San Fran would love
we do what?
San Fran will give up a lot for a CD.
Yeah, but like you think about
Actually,
it. Right?
they hate the Cowboys, so maybe not. But
you think about it. We build our team through the draft, right? That's been the whole thing. So you got to get draft picks back because we've been this 12-win team. So we're just getting constantly like mid to late round picks every year. You can get some program, you know, like game-changing guys, but typically like when you want to have that window, like that 5-year window with, you know, like rookies where you're not having to pay them a bunch, typically I feel like those are like top 15 guys, you know, safely. And on that, I think that you can find more NFL-ready wide receivers in the draft now than you could probably like 5-10 years ago, right? Like kids are just coming in ready to play, like at wide receiver. Like they're not having to like learn the pro game. Like you're not having to like develop a quarterback for 3 years. Like they're ready to go, you know? And I think that you see that from like all the young stars that we have at wide receiver now. And Grant, like I didn't want to have to get rid of CD. Like that wouldn't be like something I'd be like all pushing for because of whatever. But like I think if you're going to make a move, like that might be a decent move. Jeff also said, you know, like you hate on Dak or whatever right now, but I'm like you could also probably trade Dak and get a bunch back for him. And
I would probably trade Dak before CD.
That's a tough one. That's a tough one for sure. But the only flip side is it's going to take a lot longer to develop or find a right quarterback, right? So I don't know. I go back and forth on it.
That leads me into a Dak conversation that I don't know if I want to have.
Yeah, let's stay on track. We have a limited time here. We don't get on too many tangents, and we'll have all offseason to talk about, you know, Dallas and what they're going to do.
Hey, we're in the offseason right now, right?
Yes, but there are here that. So honestly, real quick, I've always been, the past couple seasons, been an advocate for Dak. I've told y'all needed to resign him earlier so y'all wouldn't be in this mess. I know this wasn't the best season, but sometimes that happens, right? Even Joe Burrow, you know, before his injury, his sophomore year, they weren't doing too good. Josh Allen, his first year, wasn't doing good at all. So sometimes you have that year, and you know, in this league, you get one mess up. So now people forget the fact that Dak was second in MVP voting last year. People forget the fact that they've won 12 games, you know, 3 years straight. And it all matters. What have you done for me lately?
No, what have you done for me in the playoffs? That's what matters to me.
I was about to say, like it's not. I don't think it's about.
We haven't been in the playoffs a lot, so we're like, what
yeah, I feel like as a fan, like if I was looking from a Dallas perspective, we are 12-win team the past 3-4 years. We make the playoffs every year, and then we get bounced in the first round.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
what was all of that for? Like, at some point, you don't just care about wins. You don't just care about making it to the playoffs. And like you said, Jeff, I mean, y'all, the Commanders, y'all are happy to be in the playoffs right now. Y'all are happy to be a 10-win team, but y'all haven't been a 10-win team in Lord knows how long. So it's a lot different. I can see from Dallas's perspective, like, I don't know, man. And that's why I said the Dak conversation, like, if I was them, I would feel like he's not the guy.
Okay.
Personally.
All right. So that's fair. But I want to keep in mind, I want to hear this next year because I'm going to bring it up next year. If they make the playoffs, I want to hear the same talk when it comes to Justin Herbert. I want to hear the same talk.
I don't talk like that about Justin Herbert, though.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer in Herbert.
Okay, but right now people are like, oh, he's top 6, top 10. You know, I don't want to hear any of that. And the thing is, there are a lot of teams. Phillip Rivers, most of his career, he spent over a decade in Chargerland, and they did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to keep that same standard for everybody. And the reason why I say that, and yeah, I am the outside looking in. I would love to be 12-win team 3 years in a row.
It gets old,
there was a time I wanted Dak on my team.
You can have him. We'll trade right now.
Too late, but price went up.
It's like kind of how going back to like the Mike Tomlin thing, right? Where it's like, hey, we broke 500 again this year, you know? Like if that's your standard, if winning 12 games and getting to the playoffs and getting bounced in the first round, if that's your standard, hey, so be it. But that's not a winning standard. Like if that was my QB standard, I wouldn't want that QB playing as quarterback.
That's fair. I think the Eagles standard should be higher than the Dallas standard because
100%.
I get it. Y'all won 12 games. Y'all got nowhere. You got to the playoffs. Got nowhere. But respectfully, y'all should be just as used to it as we are. You should be, realizing y'all haven't even done much in 30 years, just like we have. The Eagles have been to the Super Bowl twice, 3 times this millennium, and they should have that expectation of we should be in the playoffs. Now, the Cowboys have the talent. That's why y'all have the talent to make the Super Bowl. But it is, execution. I don't even think it's coaching necessarily. Coaching has something to do with it, but I think it's execution when it comes down to the big plays, the big moments.
The culture, bro.
Why are we running a QB draw? That's play calling. But also, why are we running a QB draw with 12 seconds left with no timeouts? That doesn't make any sense to me. And the fact that if we're going to do that, Dak needs to get down earlier, and he knows that. So it's both coaching and execution.
I think the biggest thing for them is their culture. I think they need a culture shift. I mean, look around the league. How many teams have dudes who are hopping on podcasts after every game and airing out team business or talking about the coach or talking about the organization? I think back to last year in the playoff game that Dallas lost. And I don't even think y'all had a chance in that game. CD and Dak are on the sideline arguing. You look around at some of the great teams in the league, you don't see a lot of stuff like that. Look at Kansas City. Oh, okay, I guess Travis Kelce got a podcast. But, I mean, they're not getting on there and talking about team family business. They're not getting on that podcast and talking about what's going on in the locker room.
Well, hold on, David. Hold up. Slay got a podcast, and
he does.
AJ Brown and Hurts were just arguing a couple weeks ago.
I don't love his podcast. As a fan, I don't love that he has a podcast like that. I don't love it.
AJ Brown and Hurts were arguing on the bench, and brothers argue. I don't think that's a big deal, but
it's a lot more that the players in Dallas get away with than I think if you look at a Kansas City Chiefs team, or you look at a team like the Eagles, for example, or you look at a team like the Ravens, for example. You don't, because the culture is so strong there. The Steelers, I think Pickens is an outlier, but that team is a tight ship. It's ran. You can't just get away with coming out and saying anything or doing anything. Dallas is not the same way. I don't think that Dallas is the same way, and I think that until they have a culture shift where they're bringing in guys who are not about self, who are looking to play tough football, and winning is the only thing that matters.
But look at the teams that y'all name. I would even put Detroit up there with culture, right? I'm a big proponent of culture.
Yeah.
You think about all of their head coaches and just think about the type of dude that they are, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Andy Reid, probably the best coach of, well, you got Bill Belichick, but like right now, active coach,
right there.
best coach,
right?
Dan Campbell, like that dude literally breathes like I will go and die for you. Dudes love that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, he's kind of like, he's got an aura about him that's like, don't fuck with me. Right. Like I'll whatever I can do. Like I'm gonna go out and prove that I'm worthy of this. Right. Who else were we talking about? Sirianni, that's the only one I kind of question, because like there's always been like, do dudes like him or dudes hate him, or like what's going on?
It's perfect that you said that, and I can give you the inside scoop in Philly. An article just dropped about how much the players love Sirianni.
I've heard
so
that
not
too.
to go off on a tangent, but I don't know about outside the locker room, but inside the locker room, the dudes love him.
That's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. But he also has this like kind of a dickhead person, but like in a good way of like
it gets the guys going,
right? And that's why I keep going back to Dion, is because like I think he would call out Parsons and be like, "Hey man, what the hell?" And he'd probably call him out publicly. And I think if Micah had a problem with that, that would be okay. But if he gained half the locker room's respect because maybe other guys don't like it either, then it starts to become right. Like if you can get players to get on players and hold them accountable because if they know the coach is also on your side about stuff, that's like when your culture really changes.
Yeah.
And I think that would be something that Dion could be really good at because he's not just some, random dude coming in. He's not a young up and coming coach that's never been a head coach before, right? He has like this aura, and I think like a lot of these good coaches that we're talking about have it. Like the Ravens coach, right? Won a Super Bowl, like done all of this stuff, right? They're constantly good. They've literally had the same culture for so long, right? That like that's set in stone. They're good there. And I feel like you can go like down the list with people who are left in the playoff hunt, right? Like even Washington right now for you guys, Jeff, like he's gotten all those young dudes to buy into believing in him, along with getting some like old vets to come in that are kind of like not on their last leg, but this is like their last contract, right? And they're like, I just want to go out and win. I'm tired of being on like losing teams or whatever it is. Like, this is my last chance. I'm going to buy into you, right? Like that's like that. I feel like that is the most important job, is the head, like not the X's and O's stuff, like get great coordinators for that to help you out. But like, can you get guys to believe? And of the guys that are left available for coaching jobs, like I feel like he's a good one. And it's like, you know what, why not? Because if it works out, man, like, and you get this like Dallas swag back of like, we are good. Like our fans don't just believe in us being good. Like we also like believe in us being good. And we're not that constant Bart Simpson meme of like, there's always next year. Like that, like I can't stand that anymore. And so I'm like, you know what, screw it. Like, let's just do it. What do we have to lose? We're already.
So, we do have to move on. We still are on a time crunch. But let's move on to the last thing we have not discussed yet. My Commanders with a head coach who I think should be one of the final candidates, if not the winner of Coach of the Year, just for what he's done with not only, like you said, with a losing organization and turning it into a winning organization. Being involved and competitive in every game, including the ones that we have lost. What are your opinions on how far DQ has taken the Commanders team, and do you see them as a legitimate threat? Now, I know David earlier said he's not necessarily worried about the Commanders in their future. That's his opinion. But is this a fluke year, or is this something that teams will have to worry about for years to come?
So that's a tough one, right? I believe in Dan Quinn, right? Obviously, because he made our defense really good. But I think that like he does have like head coaching experience, like he's been there before, all of that. And my only hesitation is like
that viewpoint of, well, you didn't really dog walk the Eagles, right? You may have dog walked the Cardinals, but also pretty much dog walked the Bengals. They just stayed in the game longer than most did. But my point is, have that same, like I said earlier, have that same attitude, that same standard for teams. And I think they'll say, oh, you haven't won this game against winning teams, right? Things change throughout the year. When we played certain teams, they were winning teams. And after that, off. You know, when we played the Cardinals, they were what, 4-1, 4-2, something like that, and they were like, "Oh, Kyler's going off." We blow them out by 20, double digits, and then they had the year they had, and they're like, "Oh, anybody can beat them."
How
Before
many
we
of
played
those
the
games
Bears,
do you think
they were like, "What's up?"
No, I was gonna say, like, how many of those games do you think y'all were favored in? Like, that's my only thing is like when you start to become the team that you're expected to win, like that's when it gets like you'll see who you like, who you can be and who you are. Because like I think that'll be a big part of like, all right, now we know. Now we know.
We weren't favored against the Cardinals. We weren't favored against the Bengals. We weren't favored against
the Bucks.
The Bucks either time.
To me, it don't matter.
I think we were maybe. There was a 3-point difference in the spread against the Bears. Like we weren't expected to win a lot of games, and people were like, "Oh, the Commanders is a fluke season. JD isn't really like that." Which again, there could be a sophomore slump. We don't know that. But what I will say is, if we got 5, we have a chance.
I think that the quarterback in Philly has changed my mentality about football, because at the end of the day, man, you go out to win games. Like, I don't care who's favorite, who's the underdog, if we playing away, if we playing home, if we won by 40, if we won by 1. He's a winner. And I think that that's one of the things that, like, that's a big knock on Jalen Hurts is, oh, well, he went out and he threw 15 for 20 for 150 yards. Did we win the game? No. Did he win the game? And I think that that's a bigger testament, going kind of back to the culture shift that's happened in Washington. I think that speaks more to the culture that y'all have there. And any game that y'all playing in, whether it's a blowout or it's a close game, y'all are in the game and y'all have what it takes and are doing what it takes to win. At the end of the day, if y'all go up to Detroit and y'all beat Detroit by 1 point, who cares? Y'all won. Right? And so I think that
real quick, I told Frankie this. If we somehow go and win the Super Bowl, I will be an asshole. I want to put that out there. I've been humbled. I have been humbled. And I will say that there's a lot of distrust, that not believing in us, not this, not that. I believe in 5. If 5 is on the field, I believe we can play the Chiefs. We can pay the bills. Will we win? That's going to be a difficult thing. But I believe we have a chance if he's back there.
I believe y'all will be in the game. I believe y'all will be in the game. And bro, this is the NFL. Those players get paid just like y'all players get paid. If y'all are in a situation to be able to win the game at the end of it, that's all you could ask for.
And that's my thing. It's like, you think about like, all right, who has the pressure on them? And that's like to my point, right? There's not really been like that pressure of like the expectations. And I think that can play a lot into like,
for sure,
close game wins,
right?
Sure. So when you're like, fuck, like, bro, like, are we about to lose this game? Like when other teams are starting to think about that, like, bro, like we should have beat this team, like, and you guys are like, no, like, F it, man. Like, we're going to go out there and play. Like, what do we have to lose?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, you got nothing to lose. And like, that's a great, like, that's a good place to be sometimes, especially when you're having success, because you're like, now I believe we can do it. We've done it so many times, right? And there's still not that pressure on us. And it's like when that shifts from like, you're not expected to win to like, oh no, they're a really good team. Like I expect them to be, whatever it is. That's when I want to see who y'all become, right? Because that's when it gets really hard.
That's true.
When everyone's like people love, like I texted Jeff, like last week, I wanted to see them win, right? Because it's cool for just casual fans or whatever. Like I'm not really. I don't hate them because it's like they're the underdog, and so there's not any pressure. Like if they lost and it was like man, that was fun to watch. Like that was close. But then you start like looking at Tampa Bay, like where everyone thought that they could be a Super Bowl contender-ish kind of thing, like they might be dangerous. And then they go out and lose, and it's like, damn, like that was disappointing.
Yeah. That's true. Like Dan, like I think what you're saying basically is like, all right, Dan Quinn as the favorite in the game, or somebody who's expected to win, is not going for it on 4th and 10 in the fourth quarter on his own 40. Like, and so when you're playing free, you're kind of playing with house money. You don't really have nothing to lose. You can play like that. You can make those type of decisions. So now that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. You know, next year the tape is going to be out on Jaden, right?
Yeah.
We saw how the slump that Stroud went into after having a historic rookie season. So that is a good point where, like, okay, now teams are coming in looking to stop Jaden Daniels from doing this specific thing. That's a lot different. And I saw that with Jalen Hurts from you know, his first year starting to his second year starting, where teams are looking to take this one specific thing away. Now they've had all offseason to plan on how to stop y'all. That's when you are able to kind of tell where you're at as a team, for sure.
Let's look into this playoff matchup closing out for the Commanders. So the Commanders face Detroit in Detroit. This is not going to be an easy task for them at all. This will be the hardest game they have faced all season, with the fan environment and the amount of weapons they're going to have to face on offense and defense. I asked myself the same question I asked David earlier. What did we do well against the Bucs that we will not be able to do well with against the Lions? And I will say, aside from Mike Evans' coverage, Mike Evans, he didn't have 100 yards, but he was eating, right? We cannot allow St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Laporta, Gibbs. You know, Gibbs is the receiving back too. We can't let all of these weapons just do what they want. We focused mainly on Evans, and that didn't do much. We did good against McMillan. I just think it's going to be a lot harder to cover all of those weapons when, honestly, aside from Sanders still in half of Lattimore, has what he's shown us. Aside from those two, our DBs are dog water. They're just trash. So I'd like to hear your opinions on what we have to do in order to be successful Saturday night.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I think we spoke a little bit about this, man. I think the biggest thing for y'all is not even X's and O's. It's just staying the course, bro. Because, like I said, I think Detroit is gonna come out and punch y'all in the mouth, 100%. And if y'all are able to just stay in games how y'all have stayed in games, you know, physical games, just continue to stay physical for 4 quarters, because that's what Detroit is going to do. And if y'all can't match that, the X's and O's don't even matter, honestly. I think that's the biggest thing for y'all, is matching their intensity for 4 quarters. If y'all do that, everything else will work itself out. I think y'all give yourselves a chance. You're going to have to protect Jaden, obviously. And I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head on the defense side of the ball. I mean, but I think it goes into that run defense as well. If y'all can't stop Gibbs or Montgomery on the ground, the air is not even gonna matter. So
it's a wrap.
Yeah,
that'd be my quick thought too, right? Make Goff beat you, right? Don't allow him to be a part of he did what, make him beat you. Starts with making sure that Gibbs just doesn't go crazy. Right, mix up. You got to basically take a lot of chances defensively. I think just random blitzes, whatever it is, that you're not allowing him to be a guy. Like, he's got to be the guy that went out and beat y'all. Like if
we froze. Goods, you there? All right, Well,
gains in a sense.
Oh, there you go.
I feel like you could feel good about that, right? Like, you know what? It wasn't just we couldn't stop the run, so then we couldn't stop the pass. It's like, now we stopped the run, but then Goff just lit it up.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will add to that, probably one of the biggest things we need to do is control time of possession. The fact that Baker Mayfield went 15 of 18 in the entire game, that's what we like to see. We outdid the time of possession against the Bucs, I think, by 10 minutes or so. We need to make our drives long and matter. If we give them less opportunities to score, then on average, they're going to score less. So I think that's definitely what we need to work on. Lost my train of thought. But to say this in closeout, I want to hear your predictions for the Eagles game and the Commanders game. I'll try to remember the ones we had last night that David and I talked about. I can't remember off the top.
I'll save them again because I think I slept on it and I thought about it a little bit more. If you want me to start, I'll go ahead.
Yeah,
with Detroit and then the Commanders. I think that game, I'll say like 35. No. I'll say like 28 to 24. That Commanders game. Like I said earlier, I think they get up early. I think Detroit gets up early. And y'all play how y'all played all year, and y'all just stay the course, and y'all end up trying to come back and make it close at the end of the game. Philly, I think that game is going to be like 27-17. I think 27-17 Philly, and Philly.
Okay. Boots.
Yeah, so I like to look at, like gambling lines, right? Not a good gambler by any means, but what the opening line was for y'all's game, Jeff?
I think it was 9 points.
It shows, I'm looking at ESPN bet, right? Just on the ESPN bet, it shows that the line opened at 5.5 and it's now up to like 9.5. Right? Like a 4-point swing, like it's a lot. So sometimes that's like, telling, but I'm hoping it's the opposite. But I just think, man, like if it's quick 14-0, which like if they start with the ball, they go and score, y'all get stopped and they go and score again, like, man, that is a huge hole. And it's just 2 possessions, but like it's a big hole to like have to dig yourself out of.
I see that happening.
and I do, because it's like they're at home, like they're the big tough bully guy like on the street, like,
yeah,
we're just the little kids on the block trying to come make a name for it. Like that it's tough. Because the more you win, like sometimes like the more you're like, oh, okay, are we supposed to be here? What's going on? And then like that bully comes and hits you right in the mouth. And they are the big bully right now. If y'all didn't score so much, it wouldn't be as much of a thought for me. But I think it's probably Detroit. I would say 31, Washington 20. Yeah, I think that would be my thought. But again, that like if y'all can avoid that quick start from them, that'll be huge.
And the Eagles game?
Do what?
What's your opinion on what the Eagles score is going to be?
The Eagles, I think the Eagles win. I want to say that's probably going to be a lower scoring game than people might think. And just because it's like if the Eagles know that they have to get Saquon going to win, and the Rams know that Saquon can't get going if they want to win. So there's going to be like a lot of focus on that to start the game. So you could see like a probably 7-3 first quarter, and then that's just going to trickle in for the rest of the game. I think the Eagles probably pull it off, and could be like a 24-20 game, right?
Yeah, that's I remember now. That's exactly what I said last night with a
You
different
said
schedule.
24-20?
I said 22-17, I believe. It was, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. The Rams defense has been playing better, especially which Jared Verse is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Kid hates Philly. He's going in there with a vengeance. I think Eagles do win, but like Corey said, I think it's going to be a low scoring game. 22-17 is what I'm calling. For my Commanders, I had two scores yesterday. I had what my head is saying and what my heart is saying.
Hell yeah.
My head is saying that, and these are two different games that I've seen before, right? Will they play like the Ravens played us, where they got up early and they kept matching, they kept going up and going up, or will it be like the Eagles? They got up big and then allowed us to come back slowly but surely. And here's the thing, like you said, Corey, they could go up 14-0. And obviously, it was different circumstances. I am well aware that it's different circumstances. But they can go up 14-0. I'm not going to start panicking right there. I could see 14-0 in the first quarter, and I'm not going to be panicking yet. Now, if it's 27-7 at halftime, then I'm going to shake a little bit. And I could also see that. My prediction for the Lions and Commanders game, with my head talking, would be a 38-33 victory for the Lions. I think in that scenario, the score looks closer than it was. And they came up early, maybe the whole fourth quarter, they're just running the ball, trying to end this thing, and Washington keep scoring more and more and make it close. Maybe it comes down to the last drive again, and then for some reason somebody drops a pass or something like that. That's what my head is telling me. My heart is going with 28-27. And do you remember that scenario I gave you last night?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I said 28-27. Lions go up is 27-20, and we get another JD Magic situation where he scores a touchdown in the last seconds of the game, last minute of the game, whatever. And instead of taking the Lions into overtime, Dan Campbell goes for 2 and gets it. That's what my heart is. I could see both situations happening. What is more likely? Probably Detroit winning. And the thing is, I saw a lot of Cowboys fans, man, Commanders, y'all think y'all good? Y'all think y'all good? Detroit's gonna wipe that ass. Look, there is nothing that could happen this Saturday night that would ruin the season for us.
Thanks.
This has been the best season of my life, and I'm happy. I'm grateful. I won second place in our fantasy, and I had to buy a jersey get a jersey for myself, and I'm having trouble who to get. When has that ever happened? You know what I mean? Like, I'm having trouble. I'm like, all right, I got JD, I got Terry. So there's nothing that could ruin this season for me. I'm proud of my boys. I'm proud of Dan Campbell. I'm proud of Peters and Cliff. I'm proud of how they ran this season. And I would love to see an Eagles Commanders NFC Championship. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But if y'all had any final thoughts, want people to follow you on Instagram or anything like that, or just subscribe to the page, this is going to be the time to do so. I'm going to throw it over to David real quick.
Yeah. This is just my Twitter handle that I have, famous_Dave with 2 E's. I don't, put out like no real content or anything like that. But if you want to keep up with me, that's where you can find me.
And Corey, you want them to come here and argue with you on here?
Yep. Come here. Like, find me on Twitter, and it's just gonna be my kid. And I don't really tweet. I use Twitter basically just to like read about stuff going on in the day. Like, that's it. Or sorry, X, whatever you want to call it. But yeah. So
I definitely want to tell our viewers that if you want to talk about NFC East football, you can definitely comment, on our videos below. We read all of them. this is what this is for. If you're a fan of it, we love to argue. We love to debate about the NFC East, who's better, who's worse, who's going to be better, who's going to be worse, what team is the best in the division. That's what we're here for. So if you have 2 cents on the matter, subscribe, like, share it, and let's get into some arguments respectfully. With that being said, close out here. I just want to thank everybody for coming on and viewing this with us. And, I appreciate y'all from the bottom of my heart. This is, a passion of mine, and I love to talk football. So like, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time.
See y'all later.